This screencast will cover the Unit 3 Textual Analysis essay, which is the third essay in this course and the final essay for this course. So let's just talk about the big picture of this essay. So the first thing you want to do is pick one of your first two essays, so either Unit 1 or Unit 2. So you could choose maybe an essay that you didn't feel had enough arguments in it to support your ideas, or maybe one that you just want to do a little more research on. So after you choose Unit 1 or Unit 2, you're going to search for another peer-reviewed article that you could use in one of those first two essays, so whichever one you chose. Then you're going to write an analysis of the article, and that's going to be your textual analysis essay. And you can also consider adding that article to your essay, and that could be the major revision for the portfolio. So this assignment is not about revising your Unit 1 or Unit 2 essay. This assignment is about writing an analysis of an article that you could use in the Unit 1 or Unit 2 essay. So our goals for this essay are to dig deeper into a reading. So I really want you to kind of tear apart whatever article you choose. And our second goal is to see adding an article to your paper as a method of revision. So a textual analysis is not about your feelings towards the article or whether you agree with it or not. It's similar to an annotated bibliography, but you're adding in a discussion on how you could use this article in another essay. So you're going to have that summary and analysis like you had in your annotated bibliography, but you're going to have some additional information in there discussing your revision, your potential revision process. So the requirements for this essay, it should be 4 to 6 pages, type double-spaced Times New Roman font, so it should be an MLA format just like all the other essays. The content should be that it summarizes and analyzes one scholarly peer-reviewed article, and notice that I put that in red. It has to be a scholarly peer-reviewed article, which means that you need to find it at the library. If you need assistance finding an article, you can always go into the library or go to their website, and they have a chat box available where you can speak to a librarian and they can help you. And that scholarly peer-reviewed article should be one that's related to one of your first two essays. So I really would like you to find an article that could be disagreed with. So not something that everyone would read and go, oh yeah, that's great, that's a great idea, or I totally agree with that. You want it to be something that you could argue against. Your essay should follow the MLA guidelines for format and text citations and the bibliography. And the basic outline of your essay should look like this. So you should have an introduction, and in your introduction you should introduce the text, so the article that you chose, the essay you've written, and how you see this article fitting into your essay in revision. So what purpose might this article play? So again, you're going to introduce the article, so briefly explain what it's about, and just a couple, like this article discusses blah blah blah, like 2 sentences. Discuss the essay you wrote, so what did you write about in your essay, and then explain how that new article could fit into your past essay. Then you should have a 250 to 500 word summary of the article. So this is where it's very similar to the annotated bibliography. Then you should have a thesis. So your thesis is going to be your response to the article. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Do you partially agree or partially disagree? And if you want, you could also argue a different way that the ideas in that article could be applied to something else. So by this I mean you don't have to completely agree with what the author is arguing. And you can also take a different way if you don't want to use this agree, disagree, partially agree, or disagree. You could say this article would be a really good, so say you're reading an article about social networking and it's talking about using Facebook for education. So maybe you could say we could take these ideas of using it in education and apply it to using it in a company or something like that. So you could apply it to a different context. Then you need to include reasoning and support for your thesis. So these are the details of your response. So remember, whenever you have a thesis, you need to have arguments that support it. So you can include experiences that you've had, observations, but you do not need to bring in other sources unless you really, really want to. So if you do include other sources, make sure that you include them on your bibliography page or your works cited page. And then finally, you need a conclusion that revisits how you plan to use this article in a revision of your earlier essay. So I'm looking for you to be a little bit more specific here on how this article could play in your Unit 1 or Unit 2 essay. So as you're reading the article, here are some questions you could ask yourself to help make sure that you're understanding the material. Is everything in this text clear to me? So are there words you don't know, or expressions or references? If so, then I would definitely look those up and try to understand it as best you can. Think about what the author's purpose is and who's his intended audience, and why do you know that this is the author's purpose or intended audience? What techniques does the author use to get his or her point across? So does the author quote or refer to credible sources? So looking at sources that an author has credited is definitely going to show that that author is a more credible source. Is the author trying to appeal to the audience's emotions? Do they use graphics, or are they organizing their argument in a particular way that makes it more effective or less effective? Make sure you have clearly stated your thesis in your paper, and make sure you provide sufficient evidence for your claims. And this question is probably going to be no. Your readers are probably not going to be familiar with the text you're analyzing. And then you can also think about how you know or feel about the topic or author, and how will that influence your analysis. And finally, here is my reference that I used in this PowerPoint. If you have any questions or concerns about writing this essay, I am always happy to help. And you are also encouraged to use the Writing Center for any additional assistance. So good luck, and I hope you enjoyed this assignment. And this concludes our screencast.